Alert, everyone! Let's get dangerous.
This is so cool!
I know!
It feels so right! It's Jake, Ciely.
Opening our minds to new ideas. Kill him!
Who is that guy?
Your mama.
You just made the list!
Oh, wait, you're serious? Let me laugh even harder.
It's all in fantasy. Please of the range.
Sure, we talk about it all the time.
Really?
No, burn.
Game on, you ducks. It is on Fantasy Tales of the Ranks. As you just heard, it is Week 7 Ranks Edition. And as you might have heard last week, a little bit different. We're going to try to get through every single game. And we have another game this week, Meaney, so we might have to do like 2 minutes, maybe 2.5 minutes. We're going to keep it to the clock and keep going. But it's going to have to possibly be even less than that, because we have some things to talk about. We have trades. We finished the podcast. We're done with waivers. And wouldn't you know, 30 minutes later, Davante Adams is traded. Fortunately, that wasn't the only thing that ruined our day from being able to recap it, as Amari Cooper was traded as well. Yeah. I already recapped it on The Athletic, so I'll just get your quick thoughts before we jump into this, and I'll kind of abbreviate a version of mine. Davante Adams, top 20 definitively, pushing top 15. I don't know if he's quite wide receiver 1 just because he has a multitude of options, that being Rodgers, but it's Adams Rodgers back again. We all, tongue-in-cheek, kind of that hamstring injury. Like, do we really think he was hurt, 100% hurt? Like, maybe it was like he probably could have played through it if he was on a different team. And then on the other side of it, Garrett Wilson, for me, I said now falls into the wide receiver 3 range with Allen Lazard. The comparison I made is Jackson Smith and Jigba and Tyler Lockett, is that it's going to be frustrating week in and week out, but you're going to have to keep both of them in your lineup because there'll be some good games for each one, some bad games for each one, and some games where they both produce. That's my thought on him, and then we'll get to Cooper. Do you agree, or do you have a different take?
No, I agree. I think that they both can be top 24 wide receivers, top 25. Like Garrett Wilson could still be maybe a 2, a low end 2, but you're right. It's probably going to be between him and Allen Lazard. It'll probably be a little inconsistent. I was talking up Allen Lazard yesterday on the show. I don't care about him at all anymore. Like, he may have couple decent games. No, I don't. Like, I just don't. It's like it's going to be Adams and Wilson and a little bit of Lazard. I don't think I'll feel comfortable. I have him in spots and I haven't been starting him. Yeah, I'd like flex play, maybe at best. I think it hurts. Obviously, it hurts Mike Williams the most, but I think it hurts Lazard quite a bit because Adams is going to be the guy, and Rodgers was going to Garrett Wilson more than Lazard. So it's good for Rodgers. Not in the red zone, and he won't go to Lazard in the red zone, I don't think, anymore. He's got Adams. He talked after the game about how wide receivers are not in the right spots. Right? He did his thing after the game, and then he got
but I think that's everybody else.
All Adams. It's just probably going to be a lot of Adams, but I'm with you. I don't think he's a top. I don't think he's going to be a wide receiver 1 with the Jets either. I think that they're going to be top. It's going to be, 2 wide receiver 2. Some of them might have 1 weeks, but I think Lazard's going to be that guy. Like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't think I'll rank him inside the top 35 when the Jets are playing.
The Lazard or Wilson?
Lazard.
You're ranking Wilson in there. I guess we're a little different. I have him a little bit closer. I'll try to do the same thing I'm doing with Lockett and Smith and Jigba. I should try to look for any potential notes or notations that might say, hey, this should lean one or the other. But I'm more on the end that Garrett Wilson needed 1 billion targets just to get value similar to Wan'Dale Robinson.
He did. Yeah,
and that's my issue. So, look, I do have if you ask me to rank going forward, I don't do rest of season ranks. That's Brandon Funston, and then of course there's trade charts, which pretty much answer that for you anyway. But if I did, I feel like off the top of my head, if we made another list today, we made a list yesterday, but I feel like Garrett Wilson would be in the 20 to 30 range, probably further down, closer to 30, and I feel like Lazard would be in the 30 to 40, but in the upper 30s. So I feel like they might be like a tier apart. But see, that's the same thing I would say, like Jackson Smith and Jigba for his ceiling, I would put with Garrett Wilson, and then Tyler Lockett for what he does, because he usually needs a touchdown, I would put with Lazard, unless, as we talked about, Lockett's jamming on the sidelines beforehand, and then we know it's a good game coming.
Yeah, and I'm kind of
anybody missed that.
That was awesome, by the way. Yeah, I'm kind of taking Lockett. Like, he's got a touchdown ceiling, and JSN doesn't really have one in short ADOT stuff. But I think from a real life standpoint, it's good for Garrett Wilson. He's faced a lot of top corners, and he needed 20 some odd targets, I think, a couple weeks ago just to be relevant. So now obviously the usage is going to come down, but he's going to be in a better situation. He's not going to face top corners. And yeah, anyways, it's not really what the Jets needed, but Rodgers gets what he wants.
He does.
More excited about Cooper.
They're going all in. Well, we're going to talk about Cooper. So yes, Amari Cooper traded. Something that you and I sat here and said, why not Amari Cooper? And then also we threw out also, why not Cooper Kupp? But why not Bills do something? You need them. And not just because it's Khalil Shakir is hurt. No, Khalil Shakir was out there again. And Khalil Shakir is fine. But as somebody who was, and we were, strongly in on the Shakir bandwagon, as in we were kind of leading the way, Shakir's fans, and part of it is the story I told at the combine. I just had a soft spot for him anyway, because he came out for anybody that doesn't know, he came out during lunch after all the interviews were done, and he walks out to the podium by himself. There's 5 people in the room, and 2 of them are Jamie Eisenberg and me. And I'm like, dude, I feel so bad. Like I watched for 2 minutes, maybe not, because you know how it always feels longer when you're in those positions. It's one of those awkward things. It was like I was getting ready to walk over there just to talk to him, just to have somebody to talk to. Unfortunately, 2 other guys did. But anyway, nothing to do with fantasy. Just why I like the guy. Part of the reason.
It's a good dude, yeah.
Yeah, but Shakir, this is the same thing I kept saying. He's filling the Stephon Diggs role, but let's be honest. He said this in the offseason too. He's not Stephon Diggs. He's a good wide receiver, but he's not Stephon Diggs. That's okay to say. Not everybody can be a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL, and Stephon Diggs is probably not top 10 anymore, but he was. And solid, I actually, for this, I think Cooper is top 20, and I would actually debate in my mind. I'd still lean Adams slightly over Cooper, but I think they're super close now, at least in my opinion. And then I don't think this hurts Shakir. Like, I wouldn't actually move Shakir down at all, because Allen needs somebody else to throw to. It's not going to only be Cooper. Kincaid continues to swap in and out with Knox, which is something we were concerned about this year. It has come to fruition. And then after that, Keon Coleman gets his 1 or 2 targets, and Keon Coleman's separate issue. And I saw somebody on another network, I'm not going to say his name because he was kind of a jerk to me in person, but you can probably figure it out. He was talking about how they're misusing Keon Coleman and the fact that they need to do more and slants and stuff like that, or run more routes inside and everything. It's like, well, let's be honest. We know who Keon Coleman is, and if you've really watched Keon Coleman coming out of college, as somebody who also is a fan of his talent but understands his go routes don't turn the hips of the corner, so it doesn't make the corners get off and he can't get by them. We knew that about Coleman. That wasn't supposed to. He's not supposed to be Xavier Worthy downfield. The other problem with Keon Coleman wasn't the cleanest route runner. So you can't be like, let's throw these routes in his way. What they should be doing, and I'm not saying I know more than this wide receiver who put up some really big numbers, that's another hint, is use him in the Michael Thomas role. Use him in the big slot role. But anyway, point being is now he's even further down the depth chart. So I'm okay with Shakir as still a wide receiver 3, not a wide receiver 2 like maybe some had hoped, but a 3, and Cooper's inside the top 20. Any differences of opinion there? We've gotten different on the first one a little bit.
No. I think Keon, I was going to say his route tree is limited. He's, I'm going to drop him in your flex league. I don't think that there's going to be.
Like how you gave me a heads up. Thanks.
Yeah. There wasn't even really like anything to be excited about without Amari Cooper there. He was facing top corners. He had, already had a couple donuts, a couple zeros there because of the corners he had faced. And I think I like Cooper certainly more than Garrett Wilson. He was number 1 in prayer yards over at FTN Fantasy in the Stats Hub. It's just yards. It's jokes, but it really does show you just, the fact that he was among the leaders in targets. He also was among the leaders in drops. So it's not totally all on Deshaun Watson, but he was getting used, and those are just yards that were just uncatchable due to the quarterback play. So now he gets an upgrade in obviously Josh Allen. So I think he's a wide receiver too. I still think this Bills team will be run heavy, but that's exactly what they needed, what we've talked about. And I'm with you on Shakir. I think maybe more of a flex play. I think you could have him. I bet you he's dropped. I bet you, look today, he's part of one of the most dropped, and I bet you next week he'll be part of that as well.
I was actually looking to see who you dropped in flex, but you didn't make the move yet, so I can't.
No. I think I'm not even 100% sure if I made one, but I was thinking about moving on from him. Did the waivers just run?
Holy crap! Can we talk to the people who play on Sleeper? Do you want to guess who the 3rd most dropped wide receiver is? And here's a big hint. I get there are buys, but for somebody who stepped up as a number 2 with an injury in front of him, Any more hints?
Tolbert.
Yes, he's the third most dropped. What are we doing?
It's all about recency bias in fantasy football. I've noticed when I look at the sleeper app, if you didn't do anything, if JuJu has a 0 this week, most drops.
So
that's what it is.
Oh, 100%. So Keon Coleman's 9th most dropped, which with that. Justice Hill's 10th. Like if something happens to Derrick Henry, I don't think he's going to be
a game this week.
And I don't think he's going to be a bell cow at all. I think somebody else would get sprinkled in, whether it's the activation of Keaton Mitchell or somebody else. Somebody will get involved with Justice Hill. They're not going to 20 touch him. But that being said, and then Shakir, there you go, at 17. More dropped than Jalen Polk. How crazy is that?
That is crazy. And it may even be more next week, right? Like the trade just happened. Shakir was limited last week. He didn't play a full set of snaps. And he had a dud game. So just like Garrett Wilson, it may be a little bit different because Shakir wasn't getting that top corner coverage, but this is a good real life move. It's going to open up things for him and Dalton Kincaid. And this is what happens when you bring in an alpha, it helps mostly everybody else in the offense. It puts everybody in their correct spots. It's certainly with the Jets.
And the biggest thing, too, is I think we now have Josh Allen back in the conversation to be the number 1 quarterback. Like, he was out of it. We were talking Lamar Jackson and Jaden Daniels, and then he was in the next group. And I think this puts his name back in there. Okay, so one more thing.
Top 15 weeks.
That's
he's not going to run around, but, man, he's got 3 solid weapons now.
Even with this week's matchup, which is at Pittsburgh, I have Aaron Rodgers at 18. I'd play him over Trevor Lawrence, Dalton, Herbert, Daniel Jones. Do I need to go further down the list?
You probably wouldn't have said that. I wouldn't have agreed with
Pre-trade?
You before Adams. Yeah,
I actually strongly considered one spot in front of him, Jared Goff, because he's at Minnesota. But I feel it's still Jared Goff. He looked better. I felt better about it. All right, so before we get into this, there was 2 more quick things I did want to bring up before we get into the game. We're going to have like a minute and a half per game. Actually 3. I lied. 3 things. One is about these trades, because we're talking about buys and lows with these trade situations in football for fantasy purposes. And of course, people are like, well, sell high on Davante Adams if you could get wide receiver 1 value on the excitement. Probably nobody's giving that. Sell Garrett Wilson if you can, if somebody still thinks he's top 20. But the truth is, especially if you're listening to this podcast, you might be able to pull that off depending on if you play in a lot of leagues like us, you have your varying skill sets of other managers. But more often than not, they're going to be in situations like us. Like, I'm not going to come to Chris Meaney and be like, oh, Garrett Wilson coming off those 2 great games. Let me have Marvin Harrison while he's hurt. And you're going to be like, dude, stop. So here's, I know, like maybe not the best example.
I was like, as a Marv owner, I kind of want him off my team at the moment, but
it's been frustrating.
True,
But see, honestly, okay. So what I will say is this, and I think you'll agree with me, is you don't have to trade. Like, Garrett Wilson, sure, if somebody's still buying and they're new to fantasy or they don't watch a lot of football, and you can flip Garrett Wilson for top 15 value, get running back help, of course you do it. But if not, you don't have to. Like, don't sell low just because how about this? Adams comes back, injured first game, or Adams comes and shows up on the Jets and all of a sudden he's just not the Adams we used to know. And it's not just he's top 15-ish and Garrett Wilson's 25th-ish, is maybe Meaney's more right than I am. And what if it's Garrett Wilson 16, Davante Adams 18? Like, so that's what I'm saying. Is like we talk buys and lows, or buys and lows, buy lows, sell highs all the time, but that doesn't mean you have to do it. Like when I say trade a few weeks ago, I forget who it was. I want to say it was Terry McLaurin. Yeah, it was Terry McLaurin. I was like, trade because, few targets, big plays. It's not going to continue for the rest of the season with the touchdown rate. But the point was, if you can get top 15 value, if you can't, you just don't trade, right?
Right. Yeah, you don't. I mean, I think you make all these guys available. I mean, I own Adams in quite a few spots, and I'm happy that he's with the Jets. I'm happy that he's going to play football again and with Rodgers, but I've also made him available just to see, because there's somebody in your league that may like that connection more so. Maybe it's a Packers fan. Maybe they just remember how good those two were 4 years ago, essentially. And the same thing with Garrett Wilson. I kind of view Wilson as maybe a buy low candidate, and at the same time, somebody that you can sell. But I would say maybe most managers are. I don't have a lot of Wilson, but I would assume most owners are like kind of bummed. The targets are not going to be there. You're not going to have 20 target games. And you kind of feel like in the red zone, Lazard was already getting the looks like you mentioned. And then Adams is just going to, he's going to be the number one option for Rodgers inside the red zone. So, but at the same time, like it's going to be a good offense. And if you can get him, like maybe you already have 2-3 stud wide receivers and you're adding Garrett Wilson as like your flex. Maybe you're doing one of those 2-for-1 type deals. You're picking on a manager in your league that's near the basement. They really need help. You got an extra running back. All of a sudden I'm finding your flex league. I got Hunt and Dobbins is like my RB3 and 4. It's like, a couple weeks ago, I was like, man, I got nothing here. And some things just kind of play into, better situations. So I'm with you. Make these guys available. Doesn't mean you have to trade them, but always tell your league mates, guys, any interest in Garrett Wilson, any interest in Davante Adams, any interest in Amari Cooper, because you never know what the return could be like.
That is also very true. All right, so then did I say one or two? No, it's two more. We still have two more things to get into. One is kind of got bad info, and this is this is bad info and just something that like this happens, and I feel like should have stuck to my gut on this one, and this isn't bad info from preseason. This is bad info from in season, and you'll know where I'm going with this. Chase Brown was one of the top 5 breakout running backs. I wrote the column. He was one of 5. First one was Zamir White, and I didn't go like specific order. This just was like the top 5 guys. Zamir White obviously is not happening. Chase Brown is happening. And why I say bad info is because a lot of people were like, oh, you have Zach Moss a few spots in front of Chase Brown last week. I was like, yeah, because everybody who covers the Bengals team, and I'm not coming for one specific beat report or anything like that, is just everybody who covers the team is like, when Zach Moss is healthy, he's still the lead. He's still the lead option. They still have questions of Chase Brown, blah, 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 blah. We know, you and I know, and there's a lot of people who do, and saw it, the people watching in the reason people asked in the comments that question is because they've seen the same thing. It's like, oh, Chase Brown, wow, he should get more opportunities. And even though Zach Moss is back, it was all Chase Brown. I know my feeling on this is that I'm just going to trust my gut, which I tell people to do anyway in my column, like where they're like, I kind of feel this person over this person in your rankings. I'm like, go with it. Your gut could be right. Like it could be something you've seen. I forget, were you Chase Brown over Moss or were you Moss over Brown for this specific past week? And do you have any thoughts about the same thing? Just like as we kind of go through when this kind of frustration situation.
Yeah, this past week they were side by side in my rankings. I think they were both questionable and both hurt. And I was still leading with Zach Moss, just like maybe two spots ahead of Chase Brown, but they're pretty separated in my rankings now. Like Chase is fully ahead of him. And I think part of it may have been he put the ball on the ground. Maybe he closes out that game last week.
He fumbled. Touch the field after that.
He didn't touch the field after that. And Chase Brown fumbled too after, but luckily for him, the ball went out of bounds. So they didn't lose the ball. And then 2 plays after, he busts out a run. So doesn't look good for Zach Moss. Maybe part of it was the ankle injury, the leg injury, lower leg, I think, maybe shin he had heading into that game. But clearly, we've said this the past couple of weeks, even getting information from people who cover the Bengals, that the Bengals themselves like Zach Moss, and they're still concerned with Chase Brown in pass protection. I even heard that on the broadcast from, I think it was maybe Troy and Buck. But either way, I heard that on the broadcast, and that was the biggest concern with Chase Brown. But he looks better. He's clearly got more burst. And the past couple of weeks, the past 3 weeks, I want to say he's north of 60 fantasy points, certainly in a PPR league. So he's an RB2 for me this week. And as a Zach Moss owner in spots, I don't want to start him. I don't know how many touches he's going to get against the Browns. Maybe 10 carries, a catch or two if you're lucky.
Would you go Chase Brown this week or Aaron Jones if he plays against the Lions? I have back-to-back. That's why I'm asking. I actually go Brown, then Jones. And you keep saying this to me. I'm the Jones guy this year. I went from being the Jones hater for years on end to being the Jones guy. Hey, and I've been right all along.
You have been. I may lean Jones just given the potential atmosphere of the game, but it's an awful spot. Cleveland's been okay against backs too. They bottled up Saquon in his worst game last week, but I may just lean Jones because of the environment and because of the
mine
game.
is. Maybe he catches. I'm not sure about the injury. I don't expect him to play. That's like this might be a moot point.
Yeah,
a moot
I don't
point,
think you'll have
as
to make
Joey
the
would say.
Yeah,
like
I don't
a
think you'll
cow's
have to make
opinion.
the decision. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
It's moo. Last one before we get to everything, and this will help because we've talked through a couple. Is I just want to call somebody out. Tim Kurkjian stole my question. And I know Tim Kurkjian does not listen to my podcast. Tim Kurkjian does not read my stuff. But somebody sent me a clip, and it's from his podcast, and it was talking about the Cleveland Guardians, and because they keep making the playoffs and not doing anything, but that the Marlins since the turn of the century have, 3 World Series? Is it 2 or 3?
I think
So
two for sure,
he proposed my question. It was my question. How many times have I asked this question since you've known me? Meaning I do it almost every year just for a fun topic. Is would you rather be a fan of a team that regularly makes the playoffs, but you can never win a championship, or you win 2, even just 1 championship in your lifetime, but you never make the playoffs the other years? And he stole my question because that's my question.
I want the championships. Flags fly forever. I could take the lows with the highs. Give me the championship. Yeah. As somebody who has cheered for the Angels over the past, I don't know, since the Expos moved away in 2004,
I think that's kind of
they've done nothing.
I think it depends on the team you root for, because if you're Angels, you're like, they never do anything. Give me 1 championship. But then on the flip side, it will go to, like, when I used to be a Giants fan, it's like, oh, I have the Super Bowls. I'm tired of this misery or stuff. Like, I'd rather just be competitive at this point because I've seen the Super Bowl. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, I guess technically that is saying I want the Super Bowl because I have one.
For sure. I mean, the Angels.
So that's my new question.
Okay,
there you go. There's my new question. I'm going to change it because Kurkjian stole my question. Here's my new one. If you've already seen a championship in your lifetime, do you want a second one, or do you just want the playoff contender for the rest of your life because you've already seen one?
Yeah, I think I want the second one.
Just to be competitive.
Go back to my
every year?
fandom again, like the Mavs when they won in 2011. They've been back. They've made the playoffs. But, like, I want another one. I would take, like, missing 4 years in a row to get another championship.
I mean, if you're the Mets, we're now at 4.
It's been the 80s?
38. Did I do math right?
Did I math right? 86?
Yeah, 86. That's 38, right?
Yeah. Quick math for me. Birthday's today. And
I was going to do that at the
born
end.
in
You ruined
85.
it. I had it on my calendar. I had it on my calendar to say.
All good. I just was thinking 86. I'm in 85, but 86, 38. You did good math there because I know how old I am today. But yeah, I watched the Mets sidebar. I watched the Mets 30 for 30 on Strawberry and Doc Gooden. I knew that those guys were going through some stuff, but man, they were definitely going through some stuff. And the Mets, obviously,
Daryl
they won
Strawberry
a
actually
championship.
came to our church. I mean, I want to say it was like
Did he?
8, 9, 10 years ago. Yeah, like going.
He's really turned his life around.
Yeah, he actually stopped by. I was super excited, of course.
Yeah.
There's been 2 people, Cam Chancellor and Daryl Strawberry. And I think I told you this. I met Cam Chancellor. I caught him in the parking lot. I saw him sneak out. So like at our church, they do the whole thing like at the end, altar call, and then they pray, and then they do like a couple quick. And a lot of times people like him will kind of like skirt out at the prayer because like you want to avoid and because he's Cam Chancellor. And I saw him because I was working. I was helping with, I don't know what you call it, people seating or whatever, like guest help or whatever. Yeah. And I saw him leave, and I was like, oh no. And I went out. I was like, hey, and I grabbed the park light. I was like, look, I know you're probably leaving because like this is why. I said, but like it's like I want to shake your hand. Like I know who you are, a huge fan. Like
you probably appreciated that though, man. Like
his hand. Okay, first of all, it's giant and it's strong, but it was the weirdest thing because it was like shaking a hand made out of marshmallows. Like it just sunk into his, like you could feel the power in his hand, but it was the softest hand I've ever shaken in my life. It was just like it engulfed me. Like it was the weirdest thing ever. Like I can't describe it. Like you ever shaken some? Is it shaken or shooken? Anyway. Should we probably talk ranks at this point? Now that we're 20 minutes in?
Cam Chandler is a stud though. Legion of Boom, like that story.
He is. He's a very quiet dude in person. Like very, very like reserved in person. All right, so
which wasn't the case on the football field.
No, it's some of those things.
Yeah.
Thursday Night Football. We'll kind of skip past this because a lot of people we listen to. But the quick version is hopefully you don't have to play anybody of that because assuming no Chris Olave, might not be Shaheed. And then, yeah, I mean, I'm not risking Bub Means, but let's move past that. And we'll talk about more of that game next week. But Patriots at Jaguars, they're still in London, baby. They're still out there.
They are.
And they don't get a bye. I said that to you on yesterday's show.
And it was a good point because I brought it up on the Sirius show. I actually think it might have been in the commercial break with Sandro, and he's like, but that's how stupid the Jags are, because every team is given the opportunity if they want the bye when they go over there. They can take the bye if they want, and they said no, they don't want it. So I as a team, I would want it going over there for 2 weeks.
Come on, Tim.
Oh man, but anyways, I think this game could be fun with some points scored, as brutal as the Jags are.
So I think the biggest thing is for the Jaguars. The first one, I'll just ask you real quickly: running back situation. We talked about it in the waivers, but I have Dearness Johnson ranked right with Tank Bigsby behind him this week, just because I feel like what you said yesterday, the Jaguars could be winning this one. And I think this is going to be a very much game-dependent situation of Bigsby and Johnson until ETN's back, where I want Johnson most any other week. But in the 1 week where it seems like the Jaguars could be in control, I'll take, excuse me, a little problem there, Tank Bigsby.
Yeah, and first early down work, short yardage stuff, maybe most likely goal line, but not a lock for all the touches inside the red zone. We did see, like I said yesterday, there was a moment or two inside the red zone where I think there was a 1-score game and maybe just a 2-score game. It wasn't completely blown out. Like Damon's like, I was a blowout. That's why Dearness Johnson was out there. I was like, I don't think so, man. Like, I think he's going to be 2-minute drill back, third down back. And they may use him in some situations. So, yeah, Tank Bigsby is first in yards per carry and yards after contact, but that doesn't always translate. He hasn't had a lot of touches. So, no. I do like him this week, and who knows, man? The Pats may push the pace. Drake May had some nice throws, and he may be able to push the pace on this Jags' worst-ranked pass defense.
Yeah, I had super deep sleeper as Kayshon Boutte. I wouldn't be surprised if they go back to Polk. I don't know. With Gerard Mayo, it could just be a motivational thing of like calling out Polk and hoping that he turns. But we've seen this go the other direction too. So I'm not saying. Yeah. I think Boutte or Polk. I would actually, if you're in a deep league, 14 teams, like if Boutte was picked up off waivers, which he was one of the most added, I would take a chance on Polk too. It could be either one of them. I'm not writing off Polk.
No, me neither. And that was the guy that I was going to pick up, and I saw you grabbed him. I was like, I'll just hang on to Keon Coleman here. But Boutte's a guy that you could take a flyer on. And I like your boy Demario Douglas. Yeah, that's what I was thinking, just for free. And I mean, Demario, I think it's 9 targets, 6 catches, and 50 yards in 3 of his last 4 games. And mentioned the Jags pass defense. They're giving up some big time plays. And I don't think that even if Ramondre plays, he's going to have a lot of success. And I know that Gibson won't. So I think you could take a flyer on some of the. I'd probably rank it Demario, Boutte, and then I don't think he can play Polk.
So you like some Demario Boutte? Yeah. That's what you're telling me? That's what you like?
Yeah, let's clip that. Demario Boutte this week in London.
Ramondre Stevenson, by the way, one of the few running backs. We're down to 6, Meaney, that have 100% of their team's running back touches with goal line carries. Even because Gibson didn't get one last week. That's why. Seahawks at Falcons. Darnell Mooney, I'm keeping him in the lineup. I have as my sleeper.
Yes.
What's interesting here, I want to bring this one out and kind of see if you have the same reaction I did. So Jackson Smith-Njigba is in the 40s for me for this specific reason. I told you, I'm trying to find this could blow up on my face because it's not like it's 100% of the time. But here's the one thing I did find. The Falcons use cover 3, the 4th most in the league. It's 45.8%. Almost 50% of the time they're running cover 3. There's a big gap for Jackson Smith-Njigba when it comes to this. So the wide receivers, the other ones, Metcalf versus any coverage, 1.72 yards per route run. Lockett, 1.6. Jackson Smith-Njigba, 1.5. All pretty good numbers, right? Against cover 3, are you ready for this? DK Metcalf, 2.2. He gets a nice half-yard boost. Lockett, 1.25. He actually goes down a bit. Remember what I said that Jackson Smith-Njigba was 1.5 against all other coverages? Against cover 3, 0.3 yards per route run. Are you with me in the fact that that's telling enough to bump him into the 40s, or is this an overreaction to one little step? I don't think it's little. It's, again, they run it almost 50% of the time. And, of course, he can do something against the other coverages, but It's enough that at least this week it kind of makes me feel like I should go DK, Lockett, Smith, and Jigba and kind of have a little bit of a gap.
No, I'm with you on that. I mean, you back it up with some of the numbers. I mean, just overall, too. I mean, I said this earlier with JSN. It's a short ADOT. He's going to have more catches. Maybe you give him a boost in PPR leagues. But I like Lockett. I liked Lockett more than JSN last week. And I think I may like him moving forward if, you probably don't have both of them. But I think for me, there's a higher ceiling with Lockett. I mean, you look at the catch, he's got more yards and roughly 10 fewer catches. They each only have a touchdown. And I was looking at some of the numbers with Atlanta too. Like it's really odd because they are among the leaders in allowing touchdowns to wide receivers, but they haven't given up a whole lot of yards per catch, like the fewest yards per reception at 8, but yet the quarterback completion percentage against is the highest mark in the NFL at 73. It's almost like they're just playing like kind of like, we're not going to let you beat us over the top kind of deal. Yeah, like the shell defense. They're giving up some of those easy completions, which you think would benefit JSN, but I think that Lockett has the higher ceiling, and he's kind of out there still in leagues. And this is a game where it could be fantasy friendly. I mean, Geno leads the NFL in pass attempts and passing yards. It's got a 69% completion rate, so I mean, well, they're not getting anything on the ground. Even Walker's catching passes, so I think
that's the biggest thing. Are you selling high on Walker? We got to get to the next game, but are you selling high on him?
I would consider it. Like I'm trying to think who would I think I'd maybe have Walker over Connor the rest of the year. Although I probably had Connor ranked ahead of him at the start of the season. Mixon I would take for Walker.
Mixon, I like the Mixon. Would you go get Gibbs?
Yeah, I would.
Okay.
He could be available. Yeah, I would definitely trade Walker.
People are a little frustrated. That goes back to the whole perception of things. Is you have to remember, as people were like, "Oh, Gibbs is a little too high, Achane is a little too high," because of the hope. People are off on Gibbs, like not off as in like they don't want him. It's just like they're frustrated. Yeah, they're frustrated. It's like you with Marvin Harrison.
First round pick on him.
Yeah. So actually, here's a good one. Would you send Walker for Achane in a 2-for-2? Like you're getting Achane knowing that the value of Walker should be higher than Achane, so you're giving him up for Achane. And what should I'm setting the scenario here. Let me rephrase it. Let's see if you agree with this, Meaney. I send Walker and a piece for Achane and a piece. I upgrade that second piece, knowing in my head I actually have Achane on the same level playing field as Kenneth Walker. Do you agree with that statement? Okay.
Yeah, I do. I think a lot of these Dolphin guys are buy low candidates. I think everybody is aware now that Tua is potentially coming back. There's some risk, but now's the time before week 8 or 9.
Okay. So Titans at Bills. Hey, look, get the debut against the Titans. Calvin Ridley, I put as my sleeper. Here's why. If anybody didn't see the video on YouTube, you could just see
Tough go, man.
reaction.
Tough go for Calvin. He's wasted.
They said they wanted to get him more involved. He was. Yeah. He had 8 targets. 20, almost 30% of the team's targets.
Did you hear him after when they said that? It was like a follow-up question. Like, I had 8 targets. Like, did I?
Here's why. Oh, wait. No. Here's why. Here's why. I can tell you why he doesn't know that. 37.5% of the targets were off target. That's why.
He's
over
also
a third of the target.
Prayer yards. This guy.
3 of his 8 targets weren't even catchable. That's why. That's why he was like, wait, I did? So anyway,
Crazy.
In the entire league, and I did minimum 50 routes, 10 targets. So not the biggest bar to get past. Like, so you could have some skewed numbers. Even with those numbers, 8th lowest catchable target rate in the NFL. 61% of his targets are catchable. 61. That's miserable. Yeah, exactly. That is insane. Are you with me on this? That like it could be get right against the Bills if they're gonna keep that 8 target focus. That this is an opportunity. Like that's why I would not drop him. I consider him wide receiver 4 sleeper.
It's tough to drop him. It's also tough to start him. But yeah, maybe this will be the week. The Bills actually do give up some plays in the secondary. It's too bad, man. Like I'd say that Hopkins is like that next guy that's traded too. If you're looking for like, who's next, is there another wide receiver? He's on the final year of his deal. Maybe I don't know who could go get him. Pittsburgh, Kansas City, I don't know. But either way, that could mean more targets for him. But it's a waste because I'm looking at some of these numbers. Like the Titans allow the fewest yards per game, fewest passing yards per game, third lowest quarterback completion percentage against, the fewest yards per attempt. They're among the leaders in eliminating yards to wide receivers, and they're one of two teams who haven't given up a big play through the air, 40-plus receiving yards. Like only 1 or 2 receiving touchdowns to wide receivers too. Like the defense has been so good that they just need a little bit from Will Levis to hook up with some of these wide receivers, and maybe that'd be a different story. It's just what a waste. Pollard's been awesome, and I like him again this week. But yeah, maybe they find a way to get him the ball a little bit more. They gave him a carry last week, just trying to get the ball in his hands. It's funny when you look at his game log. The one game where he popped off that you wouldn't expect was against the Jets. He had 2 touchdowns, 1 against Sauce. It's like, and then in decent matchups, can't get a catchable ball thrown his way. It's tough.
And I say I know because what was it? I traded with our good friend G-Men J. Jay Felicio.
Oh, did you? Yeah, you guys made a deal in Flex League, right?
No, we also made one in my home league.
Oh.
And, of course, trying to find it just so the reference, because I sent him, this is pre-injury, I sent him Tony Pollard and Deontay Johnson. And I don't even remember. I don't remember. I know I got back Brian Robinson. That was the thing, is I wanted Brian Robinson back. But who was the wide receiver that I got back with him? And I'm trying to find it right now. Oh, Odunze. I took the best player in the deal. I had wide receiver. Like I couldn't even really use. I was switching in and out Deontay Johnson and Brian Thomas. So that's why I was like, I'll take the flyer on Odunze, and then get the better running back. But he might not be the better running back, at least for the next couple of weeks, because freaking Tajay Spears got hurt. Anyway, next game, Bengals at Browns. Jeudy I have as the sleeper. Pretty obvious. And just volume, him and Njoku, which I'm not that concerned about Elijah Moore and Cedric Tillman. Or like this was always Cooper and Njoku anyway, so now it's just Jeudy and Njoku. Still not that excited. On the Bengals side, I would definitely keep T. Higgins out there. We don't need to spend a lot of time on this game. The reason I brought up T. Higgins is because just like Terry McLaurin last week, the cover 1 opportunity is Higgins actually much better against cover 1 than Chase is, and that was why Terry McLaurin was still a top 20 wide receiver for me last week. Very similar. The only question I have from this game, Nick Chubb, do you immediately slam him into your lineup if he plays this week?
I wouldn't. I have him like in the 30s. I don't feel like it's going to be full go Nick Chubb. I know there was a report late Saturday night. Yeah, there was a report late Saturday night that he could play, and I was still like, I don't know if I'd play him.
So in front of him, I'll run through. So I have Najee Harris still in front of him against the Jets. I do think Warren's share is going to continue to increase, but that's why I have Najee Harris at 24. Stevenson, if he plays. Rachaad White, if he plays. That's a lot of if he plays right now. And by the way, that sleeper option, told you, love it. People are really coming around on it now. Javonte Williams, Austin Eckler, Devin Singletary, if he plays. Nick Chubb, 30. Raheem Mostert, 31. Also, Raheem Mostert at 31, assuming Achane plays.
Yeah, because that's a guy that may move up as well. So you're a little bit higher.
Would you go ahead? We'll come back to.
I was just to say you're just a touch higher. I don't know that Bigsby's in a tough spot, but I have Chubb behind, or not Bigsby. I thought I saw Bucky there. Yeah, you got Bucky well up there. Yeah, so I have Chubb behind. I do have Chubb behind Bigsby, Mostert, and Tyron Tracy Jr. But again, it's all about context. And Ty Chandler would move up. Singletary I do have in, but I have Tracy.
And you
Jr.
still go Tracy?
Yeah, I think he's shown enough, man. Like 230 yards
too.
In the last 2 weeks. I know it's a Dayball thing, but I just think talent will. I think talent will over.
You think? You would hope.
It a split. Yeah.
It's also Daniel Jones against your Eagles.
It is. The Eagles have actually been okay, surprisingly, against the pass. They're kind of playing that shell defense as well, and they're giving up some runs. Like they're what I've seen from them, they're like, go ahead. If you want to run the football 8-10 yards, we'll actually let you do it, which blows my mind. But I think that's what you'll see this week when you watch them. Like Tracy Jr. or Singletary, both of those guys may have success, and I just really like what I've saw from Tracy over those 2 weeks. It'll just look like more burst, like some of these other backfields we're seeing, right? Bucky looks like more burst. Tracy's another one.
But look how long it took for Bucky to take the lead. Even like he was still 50-50. And
now Todd is saying a 3-headed monster, which is the worst thing.
That's my only concern. I would love to do Tracy situation, but that's all it comes down to. Texans at Packers as this whole format kind of just went out the window at this point. We've tied in so many other games. I grabbed my pen for anybody that's also watching, and you might have heard me clicking in the background if you're only listening to the podcast, because I was going to start making the timestamps, which I'm going to have to do after the podcast, because if you look at my piece of paper, there's nothing there. I just realized I haven't written down.
I wish I timestamped this, Jeudy.
Didn't write down an entire timestamp the entire time. At the 40-minute mark, there you go. Texans at Packers. I have Watson as a sleeper, actually mostly because not last week, but the Texans give up a lot of chunk plays. It really still is Jaden Reed and then Romeo Doubs in the routes, but the big plays, that's what I'm shooting for here. And on the Texans side of things, just smash your Texans. We know that. We're moving on. Dolphins, because this is perfect. The Dolphins, what I wanted to ask you about. If Achane is out, Raheem Mostert, how high would he go? Raheem Mostert, if I threw you Raheem Mostert versus Kenneth Walker, is that going too high? Do I need to come back? Do I need to say Raheem Mostert versus
that
Kamara?
may be a little high. Maybe still a little high. I'd say
Mostert versus Cook if he plays?
Yeah. Versus Cook against the Titans.
Versus Gibbs?
I'd probably still go Gibbs. I'd probably put him right where you have Achane. I'm looking at now, 18.
Between Gibbs and
in
Hunt?
Around
You'd
Hunt.
play him over Hunt?
Yeah. Against the Colts, I would. A little bit of a tougher matchup for Hunt.
My biggest question about I want Hunt to be high. Like, honestly, Hunt should be. It's just Edwards-Helaire possibly getting activated, and then this is, hey, you mess up a few plays, Kareem Hunt's day is done. And I mean mess up in the fact that Kareem Hunt starts off 5 for 6, gets 5 carries, 6 yards, and then it's all, let's see what we have in Edwards-Helaire. Or let's go back and start using Samaje Perine more. Like, that's my only concern.
It's possible. I actually don't think CEH will be a thing, but it's possible. If he starts slow, you could see Andy Reid switch it up, especially in a game like this, right? It's an important game, even though they're undefeated. This is the Super Bowl rematch. This is a big one.
I go back to what I keep saying about the Warriors. It's like the laziest undefeated I've ever seen in my life.
It is. Just like, they haven't really been impressive in any of their wins, I don't think. They could have easily lost 3 of them.
Whatever.
Yeah.
42-minute mark. There you go. Lions, Vikings. Look at that. Perfect. You know what? We can move on from this one in 10 seconds because it's just play all your damn starters, Chris Meaney.
Play everybody. Yeah. Hoping for a lot of points. I mean, it's, Vikings, both defenses can play, but both defenses give up a lot. I mean, looking at the Vikings, as much as they've, made Stroud and Brock look silly, they've given up a lot of plays in the secondary. I think they've allowed the second most fantasy points to wide receivers. So definitely start JMO. Like, start JMO every week. Just live with the highs and the lows. And there's been more highs than lows. Play everyone. I think even Addison with Hockenson come back. I think if you're looking for
that was the part I wanted to ask you about. Hawkinson's immediately top 5, right?
Yeah.
I don't even care if it's tight end. I don't even care if he plays 50% of the snaps. It's Hockenson and it's tight end.
It's Hockenson. It's this matchup, potential scoring in a dome. And he probably will be limited.
And you didn't say it.
What are you doing at the tight end? I didn't say it, but we know.
Revenge. Eagles at Giants. You brought that up.
More revenge.
True. I hope Barkley destroys them.
I know he had this circled on his calendar for sure.
200 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 passing. Like, just go bananas. Please do it, Barkley. I'll make sure she doesn't get up thinking I'm talking to her. The only sleeper I could pull out of this game, because if Malik Neighbors is back, you're playing him. You're playing both wide receivers for the Eagles. You're playing Wan'Dale Robinson, possibly hoping for something there. Tracy, Singletary, Barkley. She looked that time. Grant Calcaterra, if there's no Dallas Goedert, because the Giants are susceptible, and as soon as Goddard left that game, and I know that's not going to be every single week because it is the 2 wide receivers, and then maybe you hope for a little sprinkle afterwards, but the only reason he's in the column is because it is tight end. That's the only reason. So if you're looking for that Hail Mary, Eric All version, something like that, Calcaterra is the one for me this week.
Yeah, and I don't think there'll be Goddard. There's gonna be no Jordan Mailata on the line, but they're gonna play into the whole narrative, and that's not just that. The Giants allow 5.2 yards per carry or 5.1. I think it's the second highest mark behind the Bills, so they should run the. Looking at some of the defensive numbers, man, like the Giants secondary has been pretty decent. But anyways, Saquon should have a day.
As a complete sidebar, what's a random for people, but I know a lot of people are going to feel this one. A random, oh crap feeling, especially when you can't get up and do anything about it, is, did I take the trash can out as you hear them coming down the street?
It does depend. I mean, you got to wait another 2 weeks. You don't want to have the trash piled up. Do you have a place to put the trash over the next couple of weeks? Yeah, it's not the best when you miss garbage
That's a
days for us
sucky
today,
feeling,
too.
and I hear them out there, and I can't just run out.
Well, you can
and
run
leave
if
here
you
in the
want.
podcast.
You can run if you want. I could tackle the last 2 games.
Like run it through the neighborhood to where they haven't been yet. Just like pulling this thing like through the neighborhood. Be a good exercise for the
they've
day.
Had that before happen to them, right? Yeah, you don't want to miss garbage day, especially if it was like, fall cleanup and you have a lot to put out there.
That sucks. Garbage day, possibly missed, unless my amazing wife happened to take out the trash can this morning on her way to work. Raiders at Rams. God, I'm annoyed right now. Jacoby Myers as a sleeper. I think Trey Tucker, fine too. But at the same time, I mean, it is the Raiders offense. And to this day, I
guy
still...
get a 0? How did he get a 0 last week?
I know how.
Aiden
O'Connell. People are like, oh, Jacoby Myers is going to be top 25. All the volume is coming. What are you talking about? Like,
he's
okay,
going to be
cool.
like a low-end wide receiver 3 based on volume, and it's going to maybe be better than Calvin Ridley, but not much.
So here's a stat I threw in here to also throw in the point of, this is one that I don't care a lot about. Design target rates. So design targets are specifically routes. I'll give you an idea, screens. That's a design target. But there's other design targets, but a lot of them end up being short yardage because they are screens, plays like that, stuff like that. Trey Tucker's 5th in the league in design target rate. That's all you need to know. But I'll continue because you want the top 5 list. Number 1, Curtis Samuel. 2 is Jaden Reed. There you go. 3 is Luke McCaffrey, and 4 is Olamide Zaccheaus. That's all.
okay.
That's all you need to know about this stat. Take it up, ball it up, throw it out the window, and
they're
you're
just
done.
drawing up targets for these guys that they can't really get involved unless they drop certain.
You know, what else had a
plays
lot of
and
high
they're
target.
so
You know,
bad.
had a very high percentage of these.
No.
You should know. Super Bowl MVP catching touchdowns for the Chiefs. Used to be on the Giants.
Oh, Mecole Hardman? No, he wasn't
No.
MVP, was he?
He wasn't on the Giants. I was joking about the MVP part.
A guy that was on the Giants
Yeah.
when they won the Super Bowl.
No, the Giants traded him to the Chiefs. He was on the
Oh,
Chiefs for the Super Bowl.
Kadarius.
There you go.
Okay.
There you go. I gave you enough hints.
Maybe we get him going in Cleveland. He's part of the roster, right? Maybe they elevate him from the practice squad. Man, that would be jokes that Cooper can't do anything. Watson can't. Maybe Cooper is holding back Watson. You get Kadarius Toney in there catching some passes in Cleveland. Not likely.
That'd be hilariously terrible for that team. Panthers at Commanders. This should be fun. I have Xavier Legette as a sleeper. Big thing here, the Commanders lost a big piece in Jonathan Allen from their pass rush. So that eliminates some of that threat, which was their main threat on defense because they still have a lot of holes. Real quickly on this, Andy Dalton, since he took over and Adam Thielen got hurt, Deontay Johnson, 26% of the team's targets, which ranks 14th in the league. He also has 4 red zone targets and 5 end zone targets since that span and continues to lead the league in both. Just as a little Deontay Johnson love there. And then just these are some nuggets. You're playing all these guys. Brian Robinson, even while missing a game, he's still 3rd in the league in goal to go rush attempts. How about that?
Amazing. He's going to get a few. He can get a few more this week against Carolina, who's allowed, I think, 12 rushing touchdowns already. I was going to say, if he plays, which hopefully he does, for my trade, he's going to go all. He might get 2. I'm going to be curious what the line is on 2. How about Chiefs 49ers, which should be hopefully a fun one of probably the most attention that we're going to get in the 4 o'clock games. There's only... Hold on. NFL, what the hell? Can I say this too? Sidebar, another thing. We have 3 4 o'clock games. Only 3. That's it. 3. You can't get a 4th in there when by the way, what did I just say? Panthers at Commanders. That's an East Coast team. You couldn't throw the freaking Cowboys team into the 4 o'clock or something like, or Minnesota. Yeah.
That's close enough.
Yeah.
Like you're getting further out. Why are there only 3 4 o'clock games? Why?
And then 2 Monday night games this week. Last week there were 4, so I think maybe that's why the extra game on Monday night.
You have Green Bay, Minnesota, Indianapolis. Indianapolis is still East Coast, right? East Coast time? I'm trying to think.
I think it's like maybe Central. Not 100% sure.
I don't know. Just throw a damn team into the 1 o'clocks. Anyway,
Easily
sorry.
could have get it done.
All right. So anyway, timestamp 49:45. I'll start doing that now the entire show. Chiefs at 49ers. JuJu Smith-Schuster. You starting him? Top
Absolutely.
25? Is that too aggressive?
No, I don't think so. I think I may have him at like 27 or so in the rankings. But yeah, I'm playing him in this game. I don't expect him to do what he did, hit the last time out. That was
all right.
I mean,
Here.
he hadn't done that in like
Hold
1,400 days.
Let me turn this around. I'm going to ask Chris Meaney, put on your future traveling hat here, okay?
Yeah.
What's more likely for Chris Meaney to say come Tuesday's podcast? I'm really happy I had Smith-Schuster in my lineup, or I should have known better. Which is more likely to be?
I don't want it to be the latter, Jake. I don't want it to be the latter, but
you have to pick one. Which one's more likely for you to say?
I'm probably that I wish I didn't play him. No, this week, I think we're going to say that at times, but I actually like him this week against the Niners. I do. He played that Rashee Rice role. I'm not buying into Mecole Hardman. MVS was released. Like, bring the whole band back together, Kansas City. I'm not buying into all these other misfits on the squad. I do like him in that Rashee Rice role. I've always questioned whether he can handle top corners. I don't think he's going to get away from that. So, yeah, I see where you have him. We're splitting hairs. I'd probably play maybe Jameson Williams ahead of him. But, yeah, I like where you have him. I mean, there's going to be some boomer bust weeks, but he's at least a wide receiver 3 for you.
He is for me. As you can see.
Oh, yeah, you're joking over there over JuJu.
I am. I'm really struggling over here. My eyes are watering. Half point PPR. Because that matters. I actually have non-PPR, the second option, much higher. But half-point PPR. I go Smith-Schuster one spot in front of Jameson Williams.
Yeah, fair.
Would you agree?
Fair. Yeah, and half and full-point PPR.
If Jameson Williams was facing the Jaguars, I'd have him 5, 6, 7 spots higher.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. I still think he can have a good game, though, JMO.
A few more as we get out of here, and I don't die. Jets at Steelers. Pat Freiermuth sleeper because it's tight end. Is it really like that's the only thing? Because
not playing Pickens.
Sounds like. Are you buying that? Yeah, are you buying that they're going back to Russell Wilson?
Oh yeah. Dane had a mini freak out yesterday on the show, and I was like, dude, I hate to be that guy, but I told you this was happening. And when you joined the show last week, we had a caller about Fields. We had this conversation. We said, if you own Justin Fields, you need to have a backup plan immediately. It's like, I get it. The Steelers are 4-2. He's top 6 quarterback in fantasy. He's got all these rushing touchdowns. Everything that Tomlin told us, he told us. He's been talking about it the whole time. He's never said that Fields is his guy. There's been questions. You're winning. Fields is finding a way to win games. And he has said, we will evaluate when Russ can practice back-to-back days. And now he's taking first-team reps. I don't agree with the situation at all. You're 4-2. You're winning games. It's weird to make this switch. But if you're Tomlin, and again, what he said yesterday, kind of paraphrasing, Russ is a winner. He's won big games. He's won a Super Bowl. He's been to a couple. I feel like he thinks that he gives them the best chance to win a football game. It's not that easy to swap out Fields for Russ. Like, I would definitely, he's ranked in the late 20s for me, and I don't like Pickens, but they're making this switch. Can
I offer up something which I thought was kind of like, I don't know. So Tara Victoria, who works for Yahoo's Fantasy, she tweeted this out yesterday. I was like, you know what? I could see this being true. So what she said when she tweeted, I know it was tongue in cheek, but I think there actually might be some truth behind it because they continue to roll. Now, I'm taking her tweet and I'm expanding it because obviously she didn't say all of this, but you'll see where I'll actually save the tweet part kind of for the end so I can get the explanation in there. Is so you stick with Fields and he has a rough game. What's going to be after the game? When are you turning to Russell Wilson? Justin Fields, 2-3, but he's still playing well. Are you going to make the switch to Russell Wilson? Blah, blah, blah. So what she kind of said, and I'm paraphrasing, is Tomlin switches to Russell Wilson. He goes out there, 2 scenarios. Looks good, looks bad. Looks bad, you have your, look, I went back to Russ, I gave him a shot, we're going back to Fields because at least we were winning and playing good games. Boom, problem solved. Russ goes out there, plays great, and looks even better than Fields, and this team looks even better on offense. Boom, also not problem solved, but questions gone. So I actually get where she's coming from, and I wonder if that's maybe part of the thought process is because you're kind of eliminating, even though it doesn't make sense, I'm with you. Like, why turn away from Fields at this point? But from that aspect where you're saying is like, this eliminates the quarterback controversy because you don't have people asking, when are you going to Russ? 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 Go to Russ. Two outcomes happen. One, you go back to Fields. The other one, you continue as long as it's playing great. I kind of get that point of it.
There's also another element, and I'm not sure because the Steelers, they've won 6 Super Bowls. They have this franchise, and I get it. Tomlin's never had a losing record. There's also another element to it where there's a compensation for the pick. Like the draft pick is a 6th. Yeah, it could be a 4th, 50%, depending on the playing time for Fields. Like, so that could be a thing as well. Maybe this turns into maybe they're saving the 6th versus the 4th, but you're gonna I would just say like if I was Tomlin
with a calculator, like wait, right. Where are we at?
If I'm a Steelers fan, I'm pissed off to hear that. Like I want W's, and good luck. I'll just say this: good luck, Russ, against the Jets this weekend. I don't expect him to have a good game, and then there's going to be more questions that will be
that's the thing. If he has a good game against the Jets, it's like, well, we got to stick with Russ, and then if he's bad, you're like, okay, we got to go back to Fields. By the way, interesting that I threw this in the column too. Almost identical stats for Russ and Fields on completion percentage, yards per attempts, yards per completion. Like you go down the list, almost identical. The one big difference: Russell Wilson 5.8 touchdowns per attempt, Fields 3.1. That's your big difference.
I like this move for Pickens, but I don't like Pickens this week.
Okay, yeah, that tough spot, of course, especially as the main focus. Ravens at Buccaneers as we get out of here. Mark Andrews and K-Dot, and you need tight ends. Go ahead, keep them out there. So I'm going to go back real quick. This is kind of not in the start-sit, but the Mark Andrews is people are like, still sell high? I'm like, yeah, because if people are going to treat Mark Andrews as top 5 tight end, 100% sell high. However, if you can't get that, which I think most, again, this goes back to the beginning of the show, most conversations are people are smarter and know you just keep him out there. And I mean, keep him out there because why switch to Conklin? Why switch to even Njoku? Like, they're all in the same bucket. All these tier 3 tight ends are, you're going to get some good games, but there's going to be a hell of a lot more stinkers. You just got to keep him out there because it could happen any given week.
Yeah, and the role didn't really change for Andrews. It was a competitive game, and
no, his routes.
This one may be. No, this one may be as well. It can make it another Andrews week, but after that, there's some games where I feel like the Ravens are going to blow out teams, and we've seen that so far a couple times this year, and that's when Andrews has been quiet. In particular, that game against the Cowboys, where he didn't play too much in the second half. So it's hard to swap him for Njoku because you feel like the ceiling is higher. But I would say like Njoku's a guy that gets more volume down the stretch. It's not going to be good volume, but he's going to get more looks. But this may be another Andrews week. But yeah, I'm with you on selling high for him and just playing the tight end game with somebody else.
So last one before we get out. Chargers at Cardinals. That's the second Monday night game. 45 minutes after the first start. We don't get the 7 one. We get the later one now. And remember what I told you about those running backs earlier? The 5 running backs, including Stevenson, are James Conner, Tony Pollard, Stevenson, Breece Hall. By the way, this is 100% of their team's goal line rushes. And J.K. Dobbins. We did our list yesterday. Not quite an RB1. The interesting thing I want to ask you about this and say, do you agree with my sleeper of Quentin Johnston? This is what we're waiting for. Like, back in on Quentin Johnston. Got past the tough schedule, got past the tough matchups against the Cardinals, which this is one thing. So people are like, oh, are you worried about Brandon Ayuk? And I said, yeah, because I'm watching, and I went back. The quick version of this, if you didn't check out the waiver article, which, by the way, at The Athletic, you can go check that out. This is where the rankings are. Meaney over at FTN. Please check out his hockey work, too. And tell your friends and family and all those people, please get this podcast. The traction. We got most of the traction going. We want to get the rest of it back. Anyway,
absolutely.
With Quentin Johnston, the Brandon Ayuk's best game, you remember, was against the Cardinals. I'm like, okay, what was different about this? And he had a high target share. I think it was against no, it wasn't the Patriots. It was the Rams game. Had a high target share, but didn't do a lot. So I'm like, all right, so high target share, didn't do a lot. Cardinals had a really big game. There's got to be something here. And I went through the last 4 games of it. So I actually threw out the first 2 of Ayuk because I'm like, you know what? Let me just kind of throw those out as like his preseason. Let me look at what's been going on the last 4 games. And I watched every single pass play watched every single Ayuk route, watched every single team. The biggest thing the Cardinals didn't do that the other three teams do is shell. Is they actually, if you watch, they play a lot of single high safety, which is just the one safety, and they're not even that deep necessarily.
Jonathan Gannon
like
special. Yeah.
Yep. And so for everybody out, I don't throw these terms because I hate the term. I hate when shows do like single high safety, off ball linebacker, blah 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 blah. And people are like, I don't know what that means. Like, and I'm not saying like to joke people. It's just like a lot of people don't know what all these terms mean. So basically, the difference is the NFL is doing this with the zone. The shell is they're playing deeper to keep everything in front, like we talked about earlier with the other matchup. The Cardinals don't do that. You just said the Jonathan Gannon special. Most of their secondary plays within 10 to 15. And then a lot of times that safety is not even 20. Like sometimes they'll start to creep up. And that's what I watched. Ayuk was getting and slipping behind them, and he was getting single coverage and being able to slip behind them. And that's where the best game comes. And I'm saying that to say I actually do have some concerns at Ayuk because his biggest thing is he's missing his ADOT, his yards per completion, being able to dominate against man because he's not getting those big, and his yards per route runner down across the board. So I am concerned about Ayuk, but because of the matchup with the Cardinals, long story short, I think Quentin Johnston can hit some big plays in this game.
Yeah, I think he could. And when I mentioned Jonathan Gannon, those were some of the complaints out of Philadelphia is how he played his defense. He gave up big plays in the secondary. That year they went to the Super Bowl, their pass defense, the numbers may have showed that they were good, but they really weren't. When you watched games, you're giving up some big plays. So I feel you on that. I actually dropped Quentin in my home league. I know we were talking about being patient, but for Xavier Legette, I know we kind of just glossed over him. I like him this week as a sleeper as well against Washington. Yeah,
you know that I had three favorites: Legette, Thomas, and McConkey. Those are my three favorites. Obviously, neighbors and stuff like that, but like those are my three. Those are my three babies.
Yeah, and he's yesterday on the show, Dane kind of like, nah, I like Downs more. And I was like, dude, we've been talking about Downs in the show for 3 weeks. He's not available. Like, we were digging deep for other wide receiver pickups. Like, I'm talking Xavier Legette here, Demario Douglas, other guys. Anyways, not coming at Dane.
And if you haven't watched an interview with Legette, please do.
Yes, absolutely. So, I hear you on Quentin. We talked about the schedule, how it was really tough to be patient if you can. And I'd say on the other side, especially if you're a Marvin Harrison Jr. owner, maybe you want to have like him on standby, Quentin Johnston. Maybe you want to have Michael Wilson on standby if you're super, super desperate. I don't know if Zay Jones gets active, but you don't want to take a zero, obviously. So you just need to plan ahead. That's a Monday Night Football game. I don't know what's going to happen here with Marv this week at practice.
Yeah, that's a big one. Or unless you use the sleeper app, which, by the way, love that feature. You can do your auto sub in case the player doesn't play. Right? But if they play one snap, boom, done. They play. And hopefully you continue to play and continue to get some more wins. Sorry for the long one, but we got a lot of sidebars in this. Hopefully you still enjoy it. Maybe I'll speed it up. I got to put us on like 1.5 speed. Makes it sound like chipmunks. At Chris Meaney over at FTN, all the great tools, which is where I found a lot of these stats and stuff like that. So make sure you're checking that out. And I'm at The Athletic, and we appreciate you. That's super appreciate. We appreciate you. That's what I'm going to say going forward. And no, Fox, you just got to cut me off at this point. We've gone too long as it is. Super appreciation for everyone.